So it's a pleasure to have the honor of introducing the introducer of Dr. Margaret Foti, because in a moment I'm going to ask Bill Beck to come up and welcome Margaret Foti to the podium to give her talk, which is entitled ACR and the Next Wave of Innovation in Cancer Research and Patient Care. So it's hard to think of someone who might have had more influence in cancer research than Margaret Foti. ACR's a century-plus old institution, but under her leadership it grew from about 3,000 members to roughly, I believe, 42,000 members, and it has influence at the international level. And just to give you a small idea of the scope of her influence, Margaret Foti helped develop numerous journals that you're all familiar with, and these are really the leading edge journals for reporting on cancer research, epidemiology, and other areas, and that includes the Journal of Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention, Clinical Cancer Research, Molecular Cancer Therapeutics, Molecular Cancer Research, Cancer Prevention Research, Cancer Discovery, and Cancer Immunology Research. So a large part of the reporting of how cancer research is done is through ACR journals, and we really have Margaret to thank for that. To tell you a little bit more about Margaret, I'll ask Bill Beck from the School of Pharmacy to come up and continue to introduce Margaret for this particular event. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Jan.
You're going to have to speak loud.
Don't. Thanks, Jan. It's really my great honor and privilege to have this opportunity to introduce Dr. Foti, who is the CEO of ACR. Thinking about how to introduce her was a daunting task, but it was a labor of love, but daunting, because you can't talk about Dr. Foti without talking about the ACR and the things that Dr. Kodievsky just mentioned, and you can't talk about ACR without talking about Dr. Foti. I'll leave it to Dr. Foti to talk about the ACR. I know she's going to do that. This largest organization in the world for all aspects of cancer research. You should know that, however, that the ACR is more than just an agglomeration of cancer scientists and healthcare professionals. It's an incredible organization for networking and for collaborating, all with the goal of curing cancer. It's also an incredible organization for developing lifelong friendships. And for the students and postdocs in the room, who may be in the room, your best friend forever is likely not to be your lab mate at the bench next to you. It will likely be someone you've met at your professional organization through these networking opportunities. And if you work in cancer research, nowhere is this networking done better than by being a member of the ACR. And while I belong to other professional organizations, the ACR is my scientific home. And I've had the privilege of being a member of this organization for nearly 40 years. I started as a teenager. But my membership number is 3 digits, starting with a 300 something. Okay, but I've had the privilege of knowing and working with Dr. Foti, Marge, to those of us who had the privilege of knowing her as a consummate professional and good friend for almost as long, and she started as a teenager as well, so it's been a great journey. When I joined the ACR, and as Jan said, the membership started when Marge started about 3,000. We could have the entire annual meeting in the DuPont Circle Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. You cannot do that anymore. You have to have a city that has a big convention center. So one of the things I'd like to ask is bring it back to Chicago, please. So I won't claim that there's this growth from 3,000 to 42 or 46,000. I won't claim, and that coincided with my membership. I won't claim that that was due to my membership. But those are the data. What can I say? You can't deny the data. But enough about me. In fact, Dr. Foti is the driving force in the growth of this remarkable organization. and as indicated, she is synonymous with ACR, and ACR is synonymous with margin. Without her, ACR would not exist in its present form. It's just that simple. Dr. Foti has a degree, PhD from Temple. She has honorary medical degrees. She's recipient of many, many awards for her scientific and leadership and her humanitarian efforts. I won't go into that. You can find that on the flyer of her amazing accomplishments. And you heard about the journals and how this has changed the face of cancer research. In short, under Dr. Foti's visionary leadership, the ACR has become more than just an organizing center for cancer research, in my view. It's now the world's most influential voice in cancer research. So I had the privilege, as I said, meeting with her early in my career, and our paths have stayed together during all these years in the ACR. There was a 10-year period in my life, I have to tell you, that whenever Marge and a partner in crime, Ann Barker, asked me to do something for the ACR, such as chair the national committees for the state legislative committees, to serve on various other committees and the like, I never thought about it or hesitated. Actually, I was afraid to say no. But I just did it because whatever Marge wanted me to do was incredibly important and helping the organization and helping cancer research and cancer researchers. So people like me would do the same, will and continue to do the same thing. So I'm not alone. The reason that ACR is so successful is that Dr. Foti is one of the most persuasive people around, one of the bigger personalities in the organization, of big personalities, and certainly at the leadership level. And its members will do what Marge and other leaders do because we all want the ACR to succeed, to continue to be the authoritative voice in cancer research, and to help the patients. I could go on, but you've come to hear Dr. Foti. She's come to UIC during a very busy time for her, preparing for the April annual meeting in San Diego. And she's also dealing with a number of matters that are presently roiling our community, conflicts of interest, intellectual property, and even COVID-19 epidemic. So we're most grateful to Dr. Foti taking the time from her busy schedule to tell us about the ACR and the next wave of innovation in cancer research and patient care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Foti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, what a crowd. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm just thrilled to be here. I want to thank Dr. K, as they call him, for his very kind introduction, and it's really an honor to be here at an institution which he is leading not only as the interim director, but also his many hats. I also appreciate very much my good friend and colleague Bill Beck's introduction. We go way back, and please don't ask me how long, but it's been pretty long. But both of them have had major influence on this field, both from a basic science standpoint in Jan's aspect, and also with Bill doing wonderful work in molecular pharmacology and experimental therapeutics in the field of cancer for many different organ sites. So, and I especially want to thank Dr. Wynn, who actually invited me today. I said yes immediately because of his remarkable personality and his electric smile, of course. And I'm sorry that I won't see him today, but I know he's enjoying other activities. I wanted to say at the outset that I hope this information I present today will be of interest to you, and that it will provide you with a little bit of an understanding of what our organization is doing nationally and internationally. And I hope that as a result of my visit, you will all be able to think about how you can become more active in the ACR. We need all the help we can get, and I look forward to our discussion. Today has been a spectacular day. I learned so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So to start out, I just want to, for those of you who don't know what the ACR is, and you may not be a member yet, I hope you will join. I wanted to just very quickly, before I get into the meat of my talk, to really just mention our mission, which is really to prevent and cure cancer through research, education, professional advancement, also communication, collaboration, and increasingly doing more in the area of funding for cancer research and science policy. Our vision is to fundamentally change the face of cancer by being the most effective catalyst for the prevention and cure of all cancers, which actually is an amazing and also daunting task, but one that we do with great honor. I wanted to also give you a snapshot of the ACR membership, which is growing by leaps and bounds. To date, we have 46,700 members residing in 126 countries and territories around the world, representing all aspects of cancer research from the bench to the bedside, including population science, population health issues, which I know this institution is very strong in. And there are over 20,400 associate members, which is actually more than the active members, which are the senior people, 38% of whom are located outside the United States. In this category, over 18% of our members work in industry, 44% are women, and by the way, when I first started, we had 14%, so that's dramatically increasing. 26% are physicians, 10% underrepresented minority laboratory scientists and physicians, and when I started calculating, we had less than 2% in this category, and 32% from outside the U.S. So we have 187 members here, but you'll see that 105 are associate members, the young investigators, and 10 student members who are actually undergraduate students. So I'm thrilled that we have so many young investigators, and we're hoping that we will have even a larger cohort of members at this great institution that you are working at. And we see ourselves as a catalyst for maximizing advances across all sectors. The one area that I think is nascent is the one at the bottom, payers, which we have not yet interacted with, but which we realize increasingly is going to be important going forward to be able to help patients get access to the care that they need. So and to outline my presentation, I wanted to say, first of all, I'm going to review the current status of cancer and cancer research, and you will all know what these areas are, but I just thought I would review it to get on the same page with you, describe the ACR's role in advancing cancer science, and also then our strategy and what we feel is an increasing responsibility for speeding innovation in cancer research for the benefit of cancer patients. So as you know, there's been major progress against cancer since the signing of the National Cancer Act in 1971. And by the way, in 2021, there's going to be a very big anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the National Cancer Act, and we'll have to really pay attention to that. There are now 16.9 million survivors, and in the last 25 years, 27% reduction in the cancer death rate. And as you can see in the lower right, I actually just added some new data that I just heard about the other day, which is as of 2017, we now have a reduction of 29% in the death rate, something we really need to be very proud of. However, we're very concerned, as you know, about the growing problem in the United States, growing in numbers of increases in cancer cases, going from 1.8, when I started looking at this, it was around 1.2 million new cases annually, to what we believe will be 2.3 million cancer cases in the future. Certainly by 2040, and of course also, unfortunately, almost a million deaths. 54% of these U.S. cancer cases are diagnosed in people aged 65 and older, and with the increasing number of people unfortunately in that category, we will be actually seeing an increase in the number of cases of cancer in the U.S. alone. And of course, it also will affect us internationally. So we're in an exciting era of transformation in cancer research. We have a wonderful translation of basic science to the clinic with an emphasis on the challenges of understanding the biology and the drug resistance and treatment individualization. We have cutting-edge technologies offering new ways to get to the patient and intercept progression. We have exciting new opportunities in data aggregation science and real-world evidence that really hold promise for clinical outcomes and faster approval of new therapeutics and productive interactions with international regulatory agencies. And I think that all this is really great, pointing to the opportunity that we have now to have new funding models that stimulate out-of-the-box thinking about cancer, provided we can raise enough money for cancer research from new sources. The bottom line, of course, is that research is the backbone of progress against cancer, and it drives every clinical advance, and that is why your work is so important. I wanted to highlight translational cancer research because, as you can see, this triangle is very important. It points out the integration of all that we all do in this field, the importance of collaborations across all of our fields, the utilization of really some exciting new clinical trial designs, and frankly, increased education and training that is needed at all levels. But again, most importantly, increased funding for cancer research for everything that we're doing. And of course, something that this institution is very concerned about, eliminating institutional, cultural, and sociological barriers to everything we do, both collaborations and translational team science. We have exciting clinical trial designs informed by genomics, and I was very happy to see that FDA recently approved 3 drugs that target genetic drivers rather than a specific type of cancer, and ACR is working very closely with the FDA to really maximize the number of tissue-agnostic therapies that are actually being approved by FDA. Of course, they want a lot of advice from us, a lot of research knowledge from us, which is why we're having increasing numbers of interactions with FDA. And of course, as we look to the new pillars of cancer care, molecularly targeted therapies and immunotherapy, some new challenges to try to bring forward the best and the most cures that we can possibly get to. This slide really shows clearly that cancer drug approvals grew from 4% in the U.S. total in the 1980s to 27% in the last decade. This is amazing because I can remember when one drug came out, was approved per annum, and now we have 17 new anti-cancer therapeutics that have been approved in 1 year, and 10 previously approved anti-cancer therapeutics, all pointing to the rapid pace of drug discovery and development leading to these FDA approvals in just 1 year for all types of cancer. And when one looks at the last 6 months, you can see that we already have 11 more indications approved through the FDA. Spectacular progress in just 6 months. So we're really moving forward very fast. And of course, when one looks at approvals for immune checkpoints, you can see that FDA approval as of August 1st, 2016, we only had approvals of checkpoint inhibitors for 5 indications, moving to a year later 8 and now 17. In September last year. So again, exciting developments and ones that we can be all very proud of, not without issues, not without questions about how to deal with all of these new agents, but nonetheless very exciting. And I know this particular institution is very keen to look at early detection as an area, as a way of really treating successfully. And I wanted to say that I am concerned about the fact that the uptake of cancer screening is less than optimal, and that there are only 5 types of cancer for which evidence-based screening is practical. We need to do more. We need to have better biomarkers for early detection, better screening tests, and obviously even more in this new concept of cancer interception, either at pre-cancer or early cancer stages, so that we will have screening tests that people will be benefited from, and not have a situation where at the bottom there 96% of adults ages 55 to 80 are actually not even up to date with lung cancer screening, despite the fact that they are heavy high risk smokers. Now, I was fascinated to learn both today and as well as in reading about you that this institution is very much involved in looking at cancer risk factors, which I think is very important. In my career, I've known that really this area was always given short shrift, and now that we know that half of the cancers are really avoidable, and we really need to focus more on cancer risk, and all of these areas are very important. I was kind of looking at the people at the airport yesterday and seeing how obese our population has been becoming, and really something we need to look at very carefully. And so even when you look at the prevalence of obesity in the U.S. alone, you can see that it has increased dramatically in both men and women, and my hat is off to you for looking at these areas to be able to reduce the cancers in all populations. Also, given your focus on cancer health disparities, I was very happy that I could hear about everything you're doing, because clearly this is an area that we have an increasing population of minorities and underserved populations, and this is an area that we really need to focus on. And you can see from the data here, just even looking at non-Hispanic Black men have a prostate cancer death, more than double that for men in other racial or ethnic groups, and other data that are shown in this slide, which you can look at your leisure. I think that we need to think about how we can change this picture, and I'm happy that for the last 20 years or so, ACR has really been focusing on how to attack the cancer health disparities in these populations, and how we can move forward to not only put more resources into this area, but also to have effective treatments and so on when we do find them. Minority women are more likely to receive a diagnosis of breast cancer at a more advanced stage compared with non-Hispanic white women, and I wanted to congratulate Dr. Hong and also Robert Wynn and other colleagues who really produced this particular article, showing how important it is for patients in this particular area in this particular racial and ethnic group, or these groups, how important it is for them to really get access to health insurance coverage to be able to mitigate their cancers. So of course none of this can be done without a good diverse population of professionals, and this slide simply shows that for the second time since 2004, more women than men have applied to U.S. medical schools, and I understand that's increasing dramatically here at UIC, and I think it's fantastic that this is the case. However, we need to make sure that they stay in the saddle, and of course the latest data also show that that we have more ethnically diverse classes that are actually in medical schools, again needing to keep them in the saddle so that we can get the benefit of their expertise. Unfortunately, women in leadership positions in science and medicine are viewed as a leaky pipeline. You can see that in 2015, women earned 48% of the MD degrees and 55% of the life science doctorates, but the percentage of women who were assistant professors declined to 43%, associate professors to 33%, and professors to 20%. So we have to understand what's happening here. Why is this actually occurring? And there is some speculation that although there is an overt discrimination against hiring women, that has actually gone down to some extent, there are still unconscious biases that persist, and they are evident in the low number of women hired for senior leadership positions. Women submit significantly fewer grants, which is unfortunate because their promotions depend on it. Women are less likely to become independent because they have fewer funds to actually that are given to them. Men are actually being given much more in the way of startup funds, and women hesitate to apply for tenure track positions because they have very few role models. And to be very honest, as I've discussed today, even when women have role models, sometimes women do not support other women. So there are issues here that are extremely important to consider. More women than men leave their positions, not only for life experiences and life family issues, but also for persistent problems with advisors. And unfortunately, women lack a lot of confidence, the kind of confidence they need to be competitive. So all this needs to be corrected. But there's also a leaky pipeline for minority trainees in biological and life sciences. According to data collected by the NSF, 28% of high school graduates are from underrepresented areas. However, minorities only represent 10% of advanced degree recipients in science and engineering. So again, this has to be corrected. There's a major underrepresentation of minorities in the physician and oncology workplace, and it does not compare with those that are actually in the population itself. So clearly, more work needs to be done to involve a more diverse population, more diverse cancer workforce. So what's our role in advancing cancer science and medicine today? One thing that I think we're very proud of is that we have a unique scientific niche in that we cover all the areas of cancer research, including this area here, which is convergence cancer science, bringing together the life sciences with the physical sciences, engineering and mathematics, computational biology, et cetera. Because we are a multidisciplinary organization, we have a ripe environment for translational research, which is really our sweet spot, and one that will really facilitate going forward all that is needed in team science and new research models that are really stimulating breakthroughs and that are models that we are actually funding. So with young investigators really having a lot of opportunities in team science projects. We're laser focused on a number of areas. You'll see there are about 30 areas here that we need to focus on. I mentioned aging and cancer as one that we really need to focus on. We can talk about cancer evolution and cancer metastasis, combination therapies, I know is something that you all are very interested in. And other areas that we are focusing on, hematologic malignancies being one that we are truly anxious to strengthen in AACR to make sure that the solid tumor area can benefit from what's happening in the heme malignancy area. So those of you who are in heme, I hope you will help us strengthen that area within the AACR. And of course, everything that would have to do with precision prevention research, survivorship research being very strong in this institution, and of course, tumor microenvironment and cancer metastasis that I'm hearing about that is very exciting stuff and something we can work on together. Our annual meeting is the centerpiece of everything we do. This past year, we had over 21,500 people attending. Some of the critical points here to point to are 213 clinical trials presented, phase 1 through 3. Very important for us to show progress, the progress that stems from basic science and extends all the way to the clinic. New session tracks, all kinds of sessions on biomarker research and AI and machine learning. Again, very, very important, all with really led by the program chair, John Carpton, who is the guy who's really doing a lot for us in disparities cancer research, and I'm sure you know him from USC. We are currently experiencing 12% higher than our record attendance in 2018, which is remarkable given the coronavirus issue. I was telling someone today, 2,000 people registered last week. So it's quite remarkable that despite the problem that the world is experiencing. We still have people really registering for our meeting, and we intend to go forward. At least that's the current plan. Record number of abstracts, almost 7,000, more than 1,000 last year. This field is so robust, and you're in the most exciting field that one could possibly imagine. So I congratulate you for really selecting oncology as an area, because there's so much attention and so much need. There's a record number of clinical trials being presented, 225 clinical trials and 18 phase 3 practice-changing clinical trials at our meeting. So you see, we are going all the way to the bedside and doing that with under the underpinnings of important basic science. And our leader, Tony Rebus, the program chair, is going to be president next year. We have a number of worldwide scientific and educational programs, 32 in number, and we had over 24,000 attendees enjoy all that was done in 2019 and going forward. We have a very robust international strategy that really what we're saying is think globally and act locally, in the sense that we need to really be respectful of what each of these countries, whether they be developing or developed countries, are really in need. Trying to prioritize research, advancement, educational needs, humanitarian goals, and financial capacity with all that we're doing, especially in developed countries. And looking at various areas, and I believe Dr. Peace asked me today what countries we're hitting. So here we are, China. We've been working on since 2012, Latin America, other target areas, India and Africa, and also the usual other countries that we have been doing in the past, Japan, Korea, Singapore, and Europe. So clearly we're international with so many members. We need to do as much as we can for them. And global collaborations for progress, we know, are absolutely essential to be able to really go forward and do as much. And this is just an example of all the different organizations that we've interacted with over the years in our international focus. Thank you very much, Bill, for mentioning our journals. We have 8 wonderful journals that have been around for a while with some fantastic editors-in-chief, and I've been pushing hard to get your papers. So if you have any questions, please come up and see me after the talk. I would love to get some of your papers for our new publication, Blood Cancer Discovery, which will publish studies that are not only going to describe mechanisms underlying disease biology, diagnostic and therapeutic development, but also the translation of these data into clinical trials. We're going to have a great preview issue at the annual meeting, and you can see we have 2 fantastic editors, one Della Favra, who is an expert in lymphoma, and the other Ken Anderson, multiple myeloma expert. And of course, as I mentioned, hematologic malignancies is a major area, a programmatic area for us. We will be doing a lot in this area. We really want very much to really analyze the current state of heme, but also identify innovative solutions to help accelerate progress in hematologic malignancies and its relationship to solid tumors. And I wanted to, of course, mention the clonal hematopoiesis session that is going to be very popular, but also mention that we intend to be holding innovation summits with leaders from both academia and pharma to discuss how we can advance this area and really also look at it from the point of view of drug development, clinical trials, and an increase in patient accrual of minorities and the medical and the underserved. It's clear that in myeloma there are an insufficient number of African Americans being put into clinical trials, and we need to do better in that area. So this is all part of what we're doing in heme. We also are trying to raise the image of the pathology. The pathologists are feeling very unloved these days. We try to do better there. If any pathologists are in the audience, come up and I'll give you some psychotherapy. There are artificial intelligence and computational pathology subcommittee that will be really looking at new technology, communication, and education. And of course, the molecular pathologists really want more activities in precision medicine. So Again, another area of our focus. And the combination therapies area, which I know you're very interested in, has been actually one that we have been working on thanks to Dr. Jaffe when she was president last year. She brought together a group to look at how we can better understand the science behind combining all of the various therapeutic approaches and identify how we can improve, not only to bring them all together, but also explore how we can maximize effectiveness and minimize toxicity in the approach to combination therapies. So now ACR is getting very much involved in scientific projects, and someone asked me today about Project Genie, which is our attempt to harness big data to drive clinical decision making. This is going very well. It's 4 years old. We started out with 8 institutions around the world, and now we have 18. And there are plans for further expansion going forward. I think that this is an amazing opportunity to improve clinical decision making, linking clinical genotypes to clinical outcomes, but also is so accurate because it's very carefully handled within each of the institutions. And you can see here that as of just a couple of days ago, we had already had 7 public data releases, and I hope that people are using this database for your insights, because after 1 year it's totally publicly available with almost 80,000 sequenced tumors, and we're happy to say almost 4,000 African American samples. There's a lot here that you can glean from this database, and one that is very exciting, and I hope that you will take advantage of it, especially since we now have an infusion of new money from 9 companies giving a collective $36 million to the project over the next 5 years to be able to, again, help the world understand what's happening in all of these various organ sites. And I'm happy to say that we're doing a lot in cancer health disparities. We had a think tank which John Carpton chaired, which I'll talk a little bit about. We've been doing public forums. We've had, of course, a string of conferences that are on the science of cancer health disparities, and I was happy to hear from Kareem that he's participating in the next one. One of the big items is a cancer health disparities progress report, which I'll mention, which I'm very excited about because we're about to deliver that to the world, along with a Capitol Hill Day, and also a presidential initiative, which I'll describe. The think tank was really an effort to try to identify priority areas, and I'm sure you're working on some of these already, but I'll just mention that this one focused on the importance of increasing participation of underrepresented minority patients in clinical trials. Clearly, in all areas, very important. Developing key resources to advance this area of research, especially funding, I'm sure, but also infrastructure and human resources. And training. Training, very important to train the workforce to meet the objectives going forward. This think tank had over 36 recommendations. We're chipping away at them. Suffice it to say, it's a very robust area, and I'm glad that you're focusing on it. This is the conference that we're about to have in Miami in October, led by several top-notch scientists who are minorities themselves, except for Paterno, who's been doing research in disparities for most of his career. It will focus on all the areas we talked about and discuss the public health problem of dealing with minorities and medically and other populations, underserved populations. We'll really move forward in a very exciting way in this conference, and with still some opportunity for making it even better. And the Cancer Progress Report is historic. We're looking back 10 years, but looking forward on how to achieve the bold vision of health equity for racial and ethnic minorities and the medically underserved. And this is an attempt to educate members of Congress and the public about cancer disparities and the importance of this research to the elimination of disparities. It will advocate for increased federal funding, which I'm sure you'll all be happy of because we can get some here at this institution. Dr. K. And the report will cover disparities across the whole continuum of cancer research and a call to action that really is going to be very exciting. I think it's fair to say that John Carpenter's really worked very, very hard along with a wonderful committee to do a retrospective analysis of the past decade of cancer health disparities to see really what is needed going forward. And I'm happy to say that we will be releasing this on March 25 after working for 2 years on it. It's been a long road, but something very exciting. It'll be released at a congressional briefing in Washington, D.C., followed by a Hill Day of advocacy. Again, it's going to be just as important to do that, but also the day before we'll be giving awards to members of Congress who have actually started the various caucuses in this area. You may know that there are 4 congressional caucuses that focus on various racial and ethnic groups. And we will be featuring and continue to feature the presidential initiative that Dr. Caligiuri had started in his presidency, where he conceptualized an effort that was a combination of monies coming from not only Project Genie, but Orion, Pelotonia, and the former Biden Foundation to sequence 2020 cancer genomes from African American Black cancer patients by 2020. I was a little worried about this because we weren't including any Hispanics or any other populations, but we couldn't do everyone. And we realized that now that there was an enormous, this was an enormous undertaking, and we're not going to reach our goal of 2020. We're going to right now we have 634 patients that have been consented and sampled and that are in the database, and that are also being put into Orion and Genie. But we need to get moving now, and I think that they have conquered a lot of the problems they had with their infrastructure, and so that really is something that we can be very proud of. Now, we know that we need to sustain the workforce that you are all part of, especially young investigators. There are a lot of young investigators here, which has been a delight to really to meet all of you. We are working on educational workshops, all kinds of professional advancement sessions. We're trying to get more money, career development awards, research grants, and certainly one of the things we heard was that Scholar in Training Travel Awards to our annual meeting are very important. And so we're trying to increase those, and we've heard some great ideas from the senior people here about how to do that. And also, we want to increase our science education programs for high school and undergraduate students. We have over 3,000 students, undergraduate and high school students in the membership already, and we need to do things for them. But I wanted to just make sure that you are aware that membership dues are totally free for associate members. So those of you who are graduate medical students, postdoctoral fellows and clinical fellows, and physicians in training, this is totally new, free membership. What could be bad? Okay. So 4 major workshops. I've talked a lot today about the Vail workshop that is a really exciting one for clinical trial design. This one, molecular biology and clinical oncology, is the oldest one and is actually supported by the NCI, largely to teach individuals who are physician scientists more about laboratory techniques. Translational cancer research for basic scientists. This one's highly competitive, but also really working out very well. And the new co-directors are Ryan Corcoran, Lisa Cousins, Susan Horwitz, and Jeffrey Oxnard. If you know these personalities, you'll be wanting to apply for that. And also integrative cancer epidemiology, which really brings cancer biology and precision medicine together. Again, we are in an integrative era. These are all very successful, and we will be launching more in the future, so stand by. We have several membership groups dealing with young investigators, women in cancer research, and minorities in cancer research. And I also wanted to point out, just to remind you, that the student membership, which I mentioned, is 7% of the total membership of the ACR. It's amazing to think about what we could do and should do for these young investigators. And of course, I'm very proud that ACR is very active in pushing women in leadership positions going forward. I was I was excited to see that according to a report from ESMO, which was published actually in 2016, the representation of women on international oncology boards ranged from 7%, unfortunately the radiation oncologists aren't so great yet at this whole thing, to 14% for ESMO, and they still published it, by the way, 28.5% for ASCO, and 46.7% for the ACR. And what's wonderful about this is that there's a positive correlation between women who are in leadership positions and how often they are asked to be speakers at our conferences. And we're very hot in communications and public relations. Just look at the number of media clippings just from one annual meeting, almost 3,500 media clips, 9,000 media clips overall in a short period of time with 200 reporters. So we're very anxious to make sure that the public knows what's going on in cancer research, and the lay public knows, especially patient advocates are aware that how they can improve their health going forward. And so this magazine that reaches about 250,000 individuals overall, both online and in paper, believe it or not, features a lot of exciting content, which is put together by Bill Nelson, who's the head of Johns Hopkins Cancer Center, and his 34 members of his group. I wanted to say that, knowing that you all need funding, and Rob Wynn wanted me to really talk about funding a little bit, because you know, he obviously, like everybody else, is concerned about that. And I just wanted to underscore that philanthropy from the public is increasing in amount. There's a lot of opportunity there. It's become obviously an essential component in the progress that we can make in cancer research. It's also rather interesting to see that the philanthropic organizations are really challenging conventional thinking and supporting a lot of risk-taking research that has been that is really translating faster into innovation. So we're excited about the fact that we are really going to be working much harder on raising money for all of you, and other institutions too, by the way, and just to underscore that investments from public fundraising are often very exciting, and they result in accelerated patient benefits. So they are nimble, they're very exciting and risk-taking, and I'm sure that you will really want to check out all the potential opportunities for getting money from outside the federal government, as well as the federal government. So ACR has become a very active grant-giving cancer organization. We realize we have a responsibility to help in this regard. And we've been giving a lot of money over the years. Actually, since 1993, we've funded 800 ACR grants that have been awarded to scientists in 11 countries over 4 continents, and we will continue to do that. I think it's important to really say that we consider this an even greater urgency, an item of urgency, because indeed, no money, no mission. So we are working very hard on that, and we're also helping Pediatric Cancer spend the money that they are raising out of Hollywood. It's an interesting group, and we've been actually working very hard over the past 10 years or so to administer about $400 million in Pediatric Cancer grants since 2008. So combined, we're doing a lot together, but it's never, of course, enough, and we need to do more. It's an exciting time to get more money into cancer research. Those items that we are, through ACR grants funding, you'll see it's an array of organ sites that clearly are needed. Pediatric cancer is very hard to get money from industry for, unfortunately, but I think we've landed some additional money. So in the event that any of you are interested in any of this, just keep an eye on what the offerings are going forward. And realize that we know that the money coming out of the federal government is always uncertain. We're working very hard in our Washington office to really work on high priority policies, collaborating with FDA's Oncology Center for Excellence. We're doing more than any other organization is doing going into FDA and trying to expedite treatments, influencing legislation, and really building productive alliances with cancer survivors and patient advocacy groups. But a big thing is advocating for increased and sustained federal funding. And you'll see on the right here that the medical research advocacy community really wants $45 billion in 2021, but the president's budget is $38 billion. So, you know, we got a lot of work to do to get that, you know, destroyed, and make sure that we get our $45 billion. Regulatory science and policy workshops have been going on actively since 2013 in a variety of areas here, and I certainly am not going to go through all of them, but you can see that FDA really wants to increase its scientific knowledge so that it can better approve drugs going forward and do that in a faster way. The ones coming up are very interesting. Actually, we just had the one on underrepresentation in African Americans. This one, excuse me, this one here, just last week or so. But this one will be held tomorrow to address tobacco use in oncology care and research. Again, interesting that FDA wants to work with us along with ISLAC, which is a lung cancer organization, to really feature the key challenges there. We also are very much involved in an FDA ACR, excuse me, FDA ACR regulatory science fellowship opportunity, in which Rick Pazder, who runs the Office of Cancer Excellence, really wants very much to develop. And so he would like to bring in a lot more oncologists and residents into FDA. We have a great policy track at the annual meeting in regulatory, and you can see they even want to talk about their own vision for 2025. So stand by, because I think that'll be very interesting to see. And of course, all the usual topics will be part of what they do. And we have just announced a new activity with FDA, which is FDA Project Renewal. This is going to be a 10-year project where FDA wishes to update product labels for 40 oncology drugs with additional safety and efficacy information. They've engaged the ACR as a strategic scientific partner in an attempt to try to build an armamentarium of new knowledge and relabel these drugs for going forward. And I think it's going to be an amazing activity, one that's going to take 10 years, but I think Rick Pazder is very, very anxious to do it. And our progress report series will continue. This is the bigger one, the one that is general, not the disparities one. We're in our 10th year coming up to do that in September 2019. And of course, I wanted to mention that we work very closely with cancer survivors in an attempt to really educate them about what's going on in cancer research, particularly since 1999, the ACR Scientist Survivor Program has educated over 800 advocates to develop vital collaborations with the cancer research community in all issues related to cancer research. Very important that we involve patient advocates going forward. So in the last segment here, I wanted to just talk about our strategy and responsibility for speeding innovation and what we're planning on doing going forward, just to pique your interest and let me know what oils your wheels. Start by saying that the road to innovation really requires the setting of goals. As Lewis Carroll indicated in his little book on it, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, it goes like this. One day Alice came to a fork in the road and saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. "Which road do I take?" she asked. "Where do you want to go?" was his response. "I don't know," Alice answered. Then he said, "It doesn't matter." So in fact, it has to matter. We have to really do more in the way of strategically thinking about the future. This is a very complex field that we work in, and we absolutely must give ourselves a chance to really sit back and really target certain goals and take educated risks. When ACR started its Vision 2020 strategic plan a few years back, it really identified cancer science as the most important centerpiece in this whole slide, and that everything devolves from that, and everything really must really attend to science-directed, patient-centered cancer research, with a reduction of cancer incidence, morbidity, and mortality being the final goal. What we have done is to really use a number of enabling processes to help this paradigm shift, and I won't go into the details on the left, but just suffice it to say that we have discussed some of these things already. But one of the things I wanted to mention is something that is in the tail end of our 2020 strategic plan, and that is down at the bottom here. To get into clinical practice, we have been asked by people in the community to really do more to interact and educate patient practicing oncologists, whether they be nurses, oncologists, or even regulatory scientists, to really give them a better sense of all that you are doing as scientists. And so we will be developing a new project in that area. We have a physician scientist coming on board who will spend a year with us starting on May 1st. To really develop that piece, and I'm hoping to get as much help as I can get from the outside on that. All of these things that I've talked about already have been really discussed already in terms of really focusing on identifying and fostering innovative science, and really serving as the authoritative voice for cancer research. The only thing I didn't mention is that we have to make sure that we have a comprehensive financial plan that supports everything we do in our organization. But I believe that now we're in a position with our prestige, our size, and our influence. We were very small when I started. We were 3,000 members. We're now clearly over 46,000, becoming very soon 50,000 in my view. We have to use the power of our organization to do well. We've identified a number of scientific priorities to really enhance innovation, and at the top here are areas where we've done think tanks. I mentioned disparities research, combination therapies, convergent cancer science will be done in the coming year, as will immuno-oncology, pediatric cancer. All these things, early detection, interception, are all things that our current leadership is interested in pushing hard on. And I'm personally interested very much in pushing forward survivorship research, and I hope that we can get some help from this institution that is so strong in this area. Clearly, this exciting time of innovation will really continue to bring us to a better understanding of what's going on in cancer development and help us advance our work in all the areas. We are working on combination therapies, and obviously more research is needed to identify optimal biomarkers, which is strong at this institution, in order to select those patients who are most likely to respond to combination therapies, and would love to talk a little bit more about that at some point. We have more of an investment in going forward in each of the three areas I've already talked about, but the ACR Innovation Fund I haven't mentioned, which is an attempt to put $20 million into investing in new drugs, new agents that are really consistent with our mission, in the hope that as a result, any royalties will come back to the ACR to be able to fund more research. And this would be venture philanthropy that I'm excited. We've been working on this for more than a year, and we're ready to go on that very soon. And also an immunogenomics portal, which Dr. Rebos is anxious to get going, with a feasibility study and a business plan. And I wanted to be very specific about this. He wishes to generate an actionable repository of genomics analyses of biopsies of patients treated with immune checkpoint blockade therapy with curated clinical outcomes. And so excited to actually work on that with him. It will actually be something that could be added to Genie, should that be appropriate, but we're having in May a very special meeting so we can figure out how we can do that, and of course other opportunities to overcome barriers will be sought actively. We figure we're not just a passive organization, we have to be very active. We'll be doing much more in the area of education and training, and under the new Education and Training Committee that is chaired by Dr. Martis. And again, these will be in-person educational workshops workshops as well as online. We're going to be doing much more in the way of communications with various publics, but we also will be launching a new journal which is open access that adheres to international recommendations, and we are in the process of working on new collaborations with the Society for Surgical Oncology. For those of you who are surgeons in the room, a fabulous group that wants us to work with them because a lot of them are academic and very involved in the biology as well as new surgical techniques. ESMO, I've discussed with a lot of people working to really work on translational research with them. SITC, we're doing a group, a think tank on toxicity of immunotherapeutic agents, Korean Cancer Association, and oncology nursing. This will be increasingly interesting as well, getting to them in practice. So closer interactions with leading cancer centers, I think, would be very synergistic and accelerate progress, and I'm trying to think of how we would do that on an individual basis with various cancer centers. We also need to expand our work in policy. The tobacco products and cancer area is very important. We need to work more with cancer survivors and patient advocates, and I'm trying to speed through because I'm getting to the end here. And funding for cancer research, I wanted to mention that our board wants us to raise $100 million a year. Nice round number, and one that I guess will probably take me the rest of my career to do, but I think this goal will be actively sought, and a campaign to raise significant funds will be launched in about 3 years after we make some investments in additional staffing and infrastructure. We understand how important that is, but also clearly our cancer centers will benefit from these because these monies will go to important projects at cancer centers. And we will be planning and working on a 2030 strategic plan that will revisit our mission and vision and delineate goals for the next 10 years, recommending new programs, products and services, and anything that would facilitate innovation, anything that is judged to be transformative in their impact and will markedly reduce cancer incidence, morbidity, and mortality worldwide. So in short, we feel as the largest and most scientifically prestigious cancer organization in the world, we really need to work as hard as we can. We need to view the conquest of cancer not just as an important goal, but also a responsibility to the community, to the field, and to all cancer patients. So achieving the bold vision of accelerating progress is not going to be easy for any of us. We know we must continue to make an impact by being proactive. We cannot be passive. We want to act on these priorities using every available mechanism, including funding. And so stand by for that. Encourage active communications and collaborations in disciplines and stimulate creative thinking because the patients are waiting. You know, we know how hard this is. I have had it in my own family. My sister's alive today, 22 years after being diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer because of the work that you do. And I just wanted to emphasize that this is the result of your amazing work. And this is what cancer survivorship looks like. This wonderful woman who's a patient advocate, who is a survivor of breast cancer. Her aunt didn't make it, but she did. So I close by saying, thank you very much for allowing me to be here today, to enjoy your company and to learn, and I appreciate very much all that you do for cancer patients. Thank you.